So next up we have Nicole Cormier. Nicole is a registered dietitian, a local food enthusiast, author, blogger, filmmaker, and farmer in training. She indulges her passion for nutrition and local foods on Cape Cod through her nutrition counseling business, Delicious Living Nutrition, and through partnership in a cold-pressed juice company, The Local Juice, and a nature-based retreat collaborative called the Project Woods. Nicole is passionate about teaching people to play an active role in improving their whole health by developing new relationships with food, which includes connecting people directly with farmers and helping them understand and embrace their food sources. Nicole earned her degree in human nutrition from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and completed a postgraduate dietetic internship at Beth Israel Deaconess in Boston. Today, Nicole will discuss nutrient-dense lunchboxes and snacks that support intuitive eating practices. Nicole has collaborated with Cape Cod Healthcare and so many of our programs, so we're always happy to have you. Thank you.
Is it working? Can you guys, everyone hear me okay? I'd like to start off with just a raise of hand if you've ever followed a diet before. So we all live in diet culture, and diet culture really has programmed us to look outward for what we should be eating. And now we have this other model now called intuitive eating that is really trying to reverse what diet culture has programmed into us and really go inward and develop your own nutrition practice and really figure out what does your body need, and what do you need. And that is very different from someone else telling you what you should be eating. And it's quite a process in order to figure out what your body needs. We've been so disconnected and not giving ourselves enough space and time to figure out, are you hungry? And how much does your body need? We've been told like this is the right portion. And so we're good if we follow that portion, and we're bad if we don't. So there's a lot of messages that diet culture has given us that intuitive eating is the first thing that I really want to dive into. But also thinking about, there's a therapist that I work with a lot, and she always reminds me of the daily drip. So all of the things that we do as adults on a daily basis that we're programming our children and our teens, just by us following a diet, just by us, like it was mentioned before, being on our phones. So I really resonate with that a lot, and it helps me. I also have a 14-year-old stepdaughter, so that daily drip, to be more aware of it, it's amazing what subtle messages are really spreading. So intuitive eating, the first one is reject diet mentality. Instead of thinking about calories, because I hear it used still all the time, is being more nutrient focused. Or another example would be health centered versus weight centered. I still have clients that are terrified to go to the doctors because they're going to get weighed. So we want to promote health centered, focusing on what are all the other different measures that they can be focusing on, or we can be focusing on, so that we're rejecting diet mentality, but we're health centered and we're nutrient focused. So we're really thinking about what's in the food that's going to take care and sustain my health. Honoring your hunger, so listening and following to hunger cues. It's very difficult to do. It's such a subtle sensation that the easiest distraction, we missed it. And we could be thinking of all of the things that happened, before lunch, or all the things that we have to do, and we're not fully present during our mealtime. So how are we supposed to be connected to that subtle sensation of our body telling us when we've had what is necessary for our body, or how much it needs. So honoring your hunger is also eating if you're hungry. So a lot of times my clients will say, well, it wasn't lunchtime yet, so I didn't eat. And so that's basically following that diet mentality of following the rules versus listening to what your body's telling you. So honoring your hunger, eating if you're hungry, not waiting. And even if you have like a small amount during that time that you're hungry, you can then respect your fullness, stop, and then eat when you're hungry again. But I love what was said before of at least the 3 meals a day. It's a really good base for everyone. Making peace with food. So there's so many times the language that I hear, well, I can't eat that, I can't eat this, I'm not supposed to eat that. We need a guide for like nutrient dense foods and eating like a well balanced breakfast. But if we're having this inner battle with food on a daily basis and it's causing so much stress, and it's there, you have your two voices saying, well, I want this and I can't have this, and it's just constantly going back, it's exhausting. And kids and adults are exhausted with thinking about what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat versus making peace with food and giving yourself permission to eat what your body wants, but also what your body needs. Challenging negative food thoughts. So letting go of foods being good or bad. Food isn't good or bad. That's, again, diet mentality. And respecting your fullness. That is one of my favorites. I love doing this little exercise with my clients of just pause. Just pause during your meal and ask yourself, am I full? Have I had what's necessary? Instead of just either eating every clean plate club. Anyone? Yeah. We've just, put down, oh, well, this is what's for dinner, which is great, but allowing, like, really teaching kids to tune in and listen to their body more and what it's telling them, so that they can have the opportunity to develop some of these skills as well versus, oh, you're good because you finished everything on your plate. Discover the satisfaction factor. So just eating what you really want. But again, that just tuning in. They have to experience asking themselves, what does my body need? What do I need right now? And that might be much more than what's just on our plate. Our nutrition practice, what truly nourishes us? I love that question because it doesn't necessarily have to be food. And so if we're teaching kids to consume what they really want, maybe they can decide, well, I might need to go outside and get some fresh air instead of going to the fridge and getting something that's going to temporarily make them feel great. Having a good environment. So again, like the television or any screen time is off. It's really hard to be present during a meal time. And it's a great practice to practice yourself too. Even like a meal in silence to see how do you feel during a meal where you're not having any type of distraction. Honor your feelings without using food. So find ways to comfort, nurture, resolve things without using food. That's a tough one. It's a process. It's getting kids to get in touch with their emotions, sitting with their emotions. So that's a really powerful tool that I feel therapy, individual and group. My 14-year-old is in individual. She's in group with a whole group of teens. I cannot tell you how nourished she is after she comes out of that group, because they have so much to relate to and they help each other in so many different ways. But sitting with feelings without using food is a really uncommon thing, and it takes a while to actually learn how to do that. Respecting your body, this is a tough one. We all have our critical voice, we have our loving voice, and that critical voice from the media, from the daily drip. There's lots of kids that have heard their parents say fat in different clothes, or not eating certain things because of their own nutrition practices, but learning to quiet that critical voice and accessing our loving voice, so that we can have full respect for our body is another process. Feeling exercise, so a lot of times we'll exercise to burn calories versus how does my body feel when I'm exercising. Honoring your health, so making food choices that are not only healthy but are satisfying your taste buds as well. So that being said, these are some of the other tools that I use. So the intuitive eating pillars are out there. There's an intuitive eating workbook that has lots of different really great exercises in it. And then you can look up online the intuitive eating pillars that I just went over, and there's a little bit more information under each of them. But this is one thing that I go into a lot of school systems with Sustainable Cape, which is a nonprofit on the Cape, and we teach kids about where their food comes from. So I often say, where does your nutrients come from? And they're getting more and more better of the soil. Most of the nutrients are coming from the soil, going through the roots, absorbed through the roots, and then traveling through the stem, which I refer to as the nutritional highway, and then out to the produce that we actually eat. And then as soon as we harvest that produce, that nutritional highway is closed. So if they have an experience where they're consuming food closer to where it was grown, they're going to get more nutrients, and nutrients equals flavor. So we explain all of this to the kids, and they are sponges. They eat this up, and they get really excited about plants, and they love growing food. But now they have an idea of when they're sitting at their table looking down at their plate, they actually can visualize where those nutrients came from, where all of those vitamins and minerals came from. And then the next question I always ask them is, where are those vitamins and minerals going? And most of the kids now, they get really excited to see where the vitamins and minerals came from and where they actually traveling to. So they're traveling out to the rest of the body. But nobody has sat them down to say, when you're eating, where are the nutrients traveling to? So we do this little exercise where they take a sip of, I make them a little mint tea with ginger, and we talk about vitamin C. And the vitamin C in the tea is going through their digestive system, but it's traveling all the way out to the rest of their body. And they sit there and they sip their tea, they close their eyes, and they actually feel the vitamin C traveling all the way out to their muscles. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. But it's possible. They really tune in, and they can have that type of connection of them taking care of themselves. They know where the vitamins and minerals are coming from. They know where they're traveling out to, and they literally believe that they can feel it moving along. So I like to have just a general guide, but a lot of the times, because of diet culture has caused such automatic thoughts when we use certain words, even carbohydrates is a main one. I say the word carbs, and everyone automatically in my office gets afraid or scared. So I don't use that word at all in my practice. I rarely use the word fat. I still get some of my clients will still say, well, aren't bananas fattening? And then I've heard kids say the same thing. So again, the daily drip. Practice daily nutrition. So I just simplify it down to 2 words: protein and fiber. They create a partnership where they automatically slow the rate of food turning into blood sugar. That automatically provides an enormous amount of support for the pancreas to release insulin that then becomes this vessel to pick up all the vitamins and minerals and make that delivery that we just felt traveling to our muscles, to our brain, to our heart, all those amazing places. So if we simplify it to protein and fiber, it's a better visual for everyone, but especially for kids to feel their best. It's going to help balance their blood sugars, but their energy levels, their mood, their hunger throughout the day. It's balance. That's what we're really missing a lot of times, where we need to recalibrate and nourish ourselves throughout the day, not just keep going. So for breakfast, I just break it down. And these are just little formulas that when I'm working with my clients or working in a group, we just brainstorm together so that they can put together their own nutrition practice. And I think that's really important to empower them to understand and have the tools so that they can play around with it a little bit and have fun putting different proteins and fibers together. So expanding your view of protein, I like to say anything at least over 7 grams of protein would be a good way to create that protein and fiber balance. But we have a lot of plant proteins. And a lot of times we don't think of calling peanut butter a protein. Usually when I bring it up in a session, we'll be oh, well, that's a healthy fat. But if we, again, just put it into those 2 categories, it can be really easy to put together a breakfast with a protein, maybe a whole grain, and fruit. So there's just so many different options. So these are just some pictures of different proteins. And then there's, since everyone has their own nutrition practice, I love just giving ideas on playing around with growing your own nutrition practice, trying new things, trying something 15 times before your tongue decides if it likes it or not. It's usually my one-liner with kids and adults, actually. And having an experience with the different proteins. We live on Cape Cod. Clamming. Who's gone clamming? Here. Yeah. So fun, and it's a great exercise. But there's lots of different experiences to have with food, and I think thinking outside the box where it's part of learning how to take care of yourself and learning, taking the time to take care of yourself. To the left, chia seeds, those are just, again, it could be a protein. I love just making different, this is an example of a cake. So it's there, I believe there's fish in there, but just taking a protein, taking some grains and putting something that helps it all stick together. There's so many different options. Tempeh is it's a plant protein. It's made from fermented soybeans. It has just as much grams of protein in it as chicken. And then shellfish, and then we have all of our different nuts and our seeds, which could also be options. Changing up the grains. My favorite way to introduce people to different grains is actually going to Ocean State Job Lot, because you can literally stand in one place and there's an entire aisle of Bob Red Mills, and they have all of the different grains, heritage grains, lined up right in front of you. So you don't have to run around the store to all of the different areas that they choose to put the different grains in the grocery store. That gets very frustrating. I try to go to every single one on the Cape so I can explain where things are to clients while I'm in the office. But that's a great way to just see where all the different ones are. We have like wheat berries and then sprouted grains. So that's a whole new experience where you could have an activity with the kids where you're soaking your grains. They can rinse them once or twice a day. And by day 3, they have these little sprouts that are sprouting out of their grains. What a cool experience. And they could do it. Polenta. Polenta's, again, a really inexpensive way. There's so many different ways to have it. You can have it creamy. You can have it, I like to just mix it with water and lay it out flat. And if you let it cool, you can cut it into all different shapes and do many different things with it. Steel cut oats. So these are just all examples. Millet, rye berries, rolled oats, toasted buckwheat. So you can sprinkle it instead of croutons. You could get a grain that has way more fiber in it. There's also grain shares now. So in Massachusetts, once a year, I drive out and I try to bring my stepdaughter. Most of the time she comes. But we get to just fill up all of our bags for all the different grains that were actually grown in New England. So it's, again, just an experience connecting to the food and where it comes from. So nutrient-dense snacks, again, creating the balance. So these are just examples, but protein and fiber. So we have a list of proteins and we have a list of fibers. I usually just give the list and see what they come up with first, instead of like jumping in and saying, well, you should eat this. I try to that's the second word that I eliminate in my practice is should. So I like to see what they come up with. What are their ideas? So you have the framework and the guide, and you can then teach them the science behind it of, the protein and the fiber work together so that all the vitamins and minerals can get better delivered to the rest of your body where we want them to go. And then pausing during the meal so they can try to figure out how much food do they need. And if you want to give them a range, I think that's great. I use another tool in my practice where I just created a plate, but there's ranges, so it's not an exact number. So I hope everyone got a chance to look at this list and maybe come up with your own. One of my favorite snacks that I've stumbled upon is almond butter and carrots. It seems like a funny, not traditional snack, but it's literally my favorite snack. And a lot of my clients have liked experimenting with it as well. So the energy burst that you guys were able to experience, good, yeah, great, excellent. Great example of a protein and fiber. So this is the recipe. You guys have it in your presentation, and really easy to make. You can make ahead of time. You can keep it in the refrigerator. If you didn't put the carrot in there, you could, leave them out unrefrigerated. But again, we're just bringing it back to protein and fiber, simplifying the nutrition practice. So this is also, I love instead of looking at a recipe as something to follow, looking at it as a template. So you can take this recipe, but you could add so many different ingredients to make something completely taste very different. But there's a lot of examples of different templates out there. Another one that I love is the template of a shepherd's pie. So you can put any protein you want on the bottom. You can put any vegetables you want in the middle. And then you can put anything you want that can mash up on top. So there's so many different amazing options there. There's my favorite snack. So this is just an example of one of the charts that I sometimes use as well. Just again, help guide the basics. So it doesn't mean that this is all that has to go into the lunch, but this is how the nutrient density gets put into place, is choosing a protein, choosing a fruit, a vegetable, and a grain, but letting them decide or letting them be a part of it, or part of the discussion. So like I said before, let kids design their lunches, maybe using the chart. So I did bring a couple things, but I get like the first example is, so this is like a wrap, right? So I'll put the wrap down. I'll take my banana, so protein, peanut butter, fruit, banana. So this is actually one of my, I have to show you guys because it's so easy. And kids love this. So we have our banana. We have our peanut butter. This is probably going to be my snack for the ride home. I'm just kidding. If we just simply spread the peanut butter on one end, then it's leaving a sticky surface. The banana sticks great. And then we slowly roll this up. And maybe add a little bit more peanut butter for the end part. And then, we have our wrap to go. A lot of my kids that I work with, they love taking that for breakfast. They love it, or they'll make it themselves for lunch. You can have some carrots on the side. Another example that's a little bit out of the box thinking is using a collard green leaf. My 14-year-old is obsessed with these. I don't know why, but we just had it for dinner once, and she makes them all the time. So just starting off with a collard green leaf. So I usually buy the bunch, and I'll weed out all the ones that aren't like wrap material. They're amazing. It's not a super bitter green. Whenever we add any dark leafy greens to any meal, we are supporting our digestion. They have secondary metabolites in them that just help the enzymes break down all of our food. So it's worth a shot. It's just an experience. So what I would do here is I would take my wrap. Maybe I chose a beet hummus because I like the color. So I would put hummus down on my wrap. Maybe I would add some edamame and maybe even some avocado. And one of my favorite things that I think everyone should dabble in and see what they think, but fermented foods. So fermented foods have natural probiotics in them. We have lots of different options now. We have amazing companies that are really stepping up and doing fermented carrots and fermented beets, not just kimchi, which is fermented cabbage or sauerkraut. But we have all of this available in the grocery store now. But then there's that other activity that also kids love to do because you can use your hands. Making kimchi is very therapeutic. You literally are just squeezing cabbage. Think about, Miley likes to do it, and a lot of other kids that I work with, we do like little groups where we'll make kimchi and they get to bring home a jar. But you're getting a natural probiotic this way, and it is something fun and flavorful to add to your different meals. So all of this wrapped in a little collard green. But at dinner, how easy is it to put out all different things? So if you're not, you could do like a collard green burrito bar where you have your collard greens, but then you could put a couple, like a salsa or a couple different proteins, and people can assemble their own burritos. That's also a really fun thing to do. So those are a couple examples that, again, are out of the box thinking. However, it's an experience, and it doesn't have to be traditional And kids like to be creative if we let them be creative. So these are just some other examples. Rice bowls are also like thinking about ingredient prepping in the house too. So in the fridge, I always have a couple different grains just cooked. So we have brown rice and quinoa. Then I have a couple different proteins cooked. Maybe it's like shredded chicken and beans. And then some ready available like roasted veggies. So at any point, anyone could take out those categories like a protein, a grain, and vegetables and assemble a meal and then put a bunch of fun toppings on them, like fermented carrots. They're delicious. And then there's an example of the pulled barbecue chicken wrap, tempeh pasta salad. So again, that could just be something that could be assembled. But you have to set up the systems in the house too and communicate that, the relationship between the protein and fiber, and then see what happens. Because oftentimes kids will start, like I said, they're sponges. They do listen and they can get the protein and fiber concept very easily. I've lost my thing. Okay. So new experiences. I just was sitting down brainstorming, what could be a new experience for people? And so I just listed a bunch of different types of nuts. So oftentimes I'll ask someone, do you like nuts or what nuts do you like? And they only have had experiences with a couple of them. So there's so many different other experiences. Berries like goji berries, elderberries, cherries, like things that maybe they haven't had before. All the seed butters and nut butters, thank you. Different types of hummus. So this was an example of a beet hummus. You can put any flavor in a hummus. So maybe using like garlic, if they like garlic, lemon is another one. Roasted vegetables definitely change the flavor of the veggies. So whenever I did have this was one of my clients, it was a mother and a daughter, and I was being silly and, saying, what about cauliflower? And the automatic look was like, ugh, like gross. And so I asked her, well, when's the last time that you had it? And she's never had it. But mom's face was the same as hers. So I brought her outside for a little chat to explain, why her daughter was not able to have this experience with the food because of her programming. Of like, that was her experience. Everyone did. When I do taste tests with all the kids, it's hysterical because they'll be sipping their smoothie like looking at each other to see like, well, I'm going to say the same thing that, Joe said or whatever. So I have to remind them, stay focused on yourself. Stay focused. What are you experiencing? Like we need to keep encouraging that. So this will give you a bunch of new ideas. Teas, kids love teas. They do think it's pretty cool, and you can make all different ones. This is one of the tools that I use to kind of show what's in season. So spring's coming up, which is exciting. And then this is all my contact information, my website, my offices, and my email if you have any questions, but I think we will take